អនុញ្ញាតតាមការស្នើសុំដូចខាងក្រោម I learned from kids. I've never had a teacher. I've never had any textbooks. I've never taken a class.
Meet Serena from the United States. She has been living in Cambodia on and off for the past 5 years. In our conversation, Serena revealed she learned how to read and write in Khmer without ever taking a class or even using a notebook. She shared why she believed it is so important for the foreigners to learn the local language, and how learning Khmer has helped her to understand more about Cambodia and Cambodians. So stay tuned for the next episode. Serena is going to review a little bit about her life in Cambodia, dating with Khmer guy, living with her fiancé family in the province, and moving from the province to the city.
ជំរាបសួរអ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នាឈ្មោះខ្ញុំ Serena ហើយខ្ញុំមកពី USA ឥឡូវខ្ញុំរស់នៅខ្មែរជិត5ឆ្នាំហើយចាប់ពីខ្ញុំអាយុ18ឆ្នាំចា៎
What do you like about living in Cambodia? Can you say that in Khmer?
បើខ្ញុំគិតមូលហេតុដែលខ្ញុំចូលចិត្តរស់នៅខ្មែរមានមនុស្សពិតជា friendly គាត់ចូលចិត្តនិយាយជាមួយយើងហើយគាត់ស្វាគមន៍យើងពីដំបូងចាក់ពីខ្ញុំមកខ្មែរដំបូងគឺមនុស្សគេស្វាគមន៍ខ្ញុំគ្រប់គ្នាហើយទី2ខ្ញុំចូលចិត្តម្ហូបខ្មែរចូលចិត្តគ្រប់មុខវាឆ្ងាញ់ទាំងអស់ហើយទី3ខ្ញុំឃើញស្រុកខ្មែរស្អាតគ្រប់កន្លែងខ្ញុំឃើញមានអាគារបែបធម្មជាតិបែប style ខ្មែរហើយបើក្រោយខ្ញុំមានអារម្មណ៍ខ្ញុំស្រឡាញ់ខ្មែរច្រើនជាងកន្លែងផ្សេងដោយសារនៅខ្មែរជីវិតរៀងគេហៅ slow life មានន័យថាជីវិតយឺតយើងមានពេលវេលាសម្រាប់បើយើងចង់គេង2ថ្ងៃក៏បានអីចឹងណា So the reasons why I feel like I really like Cambodia are first the people. Everyone is really friendly and welcoming. Even since my first day here, I've always felt like I've been very welcomed by anyone that I meet. I also really like Cambodian food. Any food, I like all of it. I don't think I've had any food I don't like. And I also think that Cambodia is very beautiful. Everywhere I've been has kind of a different kind of beauty. And even in the city, I like that there's a lot of the traditional style of architecture. I think that's really cool. And then finally, I love that in Cambodia, it's more of a slow lifestyle. So there's time to relax. It's not as busy. Even like taking a nap during the day is possible. So I like that tempo of life.
Can you also read in Khmer? Because I saw in your TikTok, they're like explaining the one of the comments. Yeah, you explained, but it was written in Khmer.
Oh, it's not perfect, but I'll try my best. ផ្នែកគ្រប់គ្រងយើងខ្ញុំបានបណ្ឌិតនឹងយោងយ៉ាងយោងទៅលើកលការនៃការស្នើសុំជួសជុលតបតែងដែលមិនធ្វើឲ្យប៉ះពាល់ទៅដល់សូភ័ណ្ឌភាពសំណង់និងប្រព័ន្ធផ្សេងៗរបស់អាគារហើយដូចនេះផ្នែកគ្រប់គ្រងយើងខ្ញុំអនុញ្ញាតតាមការស្នើសុំដូចខាងក្រោម
What does he say?
They're talking about it's basically a statement letting everyone know that there's construction going on here and specifying the details of what changes they're making. I can read and write Khmer, and actually I learned that first. So to give you some backstory, I first came to Cambodia just for a month in 2019, and I knew I liked it and wanted to come back. So I spent about a year preparing, saving money. And during that time, I started to teach myself to read and write. And of course, it was very rudimentary, and I probably was not going about it in a very good or helpful way, but I tried. So I started writing all the letters, and I wrote down and translated a bunch of random vocabulary words. And I feel like that kind of set a foundation for learning, because I know a lot of people think reading and writing is complicated, but it's just memorization, like a lot of other parts of language learning. And it teaches you the foundational sounds you need to know. And so I think that helped, especially with my pronunciation. And then, of course, now I have the ability to get around better and, understand things online or read books if I want to. So, I kind of started there for my foundation. So, I can read anything. There's just maybe some more advanced vocabulary, or especially like vocabulary they use in professional settings that sometimes trips me up. But And the fancy script
Yeah.
that we see, that's hard. That's hard to read because some of the letters look different.
How do you learn Khmer?
I honestly learned from kids. That's what I tell everyone. Yeah.
Up here.
No. From the kids that I worked with at the beginning.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. I wish I'd grown up here. It would have been easier to learn that way. But yeah, I learned from kids. I've never had a teacher. I've never had any textbooks. I've never taken a class.
Wow.
So yeah, like I said, I started by writing down the alphabet and some words on my own. And then by the time I came back to live in Cambodia in 2020, I was working at a children's home in a village. And so some of those kids knew enough English to kind of help me get by. And so I just spent significant parts of every day asking them, what's this? What's that? How do you say this? How do you say that? And it was really rough at first, but I just wrote down a lot of vocabulary and kept asking people how to say things. And yeah, that's literally all I've done the entire time. And I was most dedicated about studying within my first year here. And then after that time, I've just kind of hoped that I'll pick it up. And I guess the way that I've lived here has progressed at a nice pace where I've been able to keep my Khmer learning on track with that. So going from a village to eventually moving to the city and starting to speak with coworkers in Khmer, and then moving to jobs where now I have the opportunity to speak with management and parents of my students in Khmer. And yeah, so I think it's kind of just progressed at a good rate, but that is all I've done, is just ask questions and wrote stuff down.
That is impressive, you know. But how do you say you did not take classes, but how do you learn how to write?
I don't even know anymore. Sometimes I think back and I wonder, how did I do this? I don't know how I figured this out. I can tell you that a lot of the methodology that I've used has been terrible. Just literally copying stuff from Google Translate, not knowing how to even form the letters, and then later on seeing Cambodians read and write and realizing, oh, I'm literally physically doing this wrong. But I would say, I mean, for a lot of it, I've relied, as silly as it sounds, on Google Translate for transliteration and romanization of letters. Yeah, I just looked up the general letter sounds for each one of the letters and hoped it was accurate. And then also something I did that I think helped to kind of cement the different letter sounds with seeing the letter is installing the Khmer keyboard on my phone pretty early on. And it's helpful because the Khmer keyboard, most of the letters that have a similar sound to English are in the same place as the English keyboard. And so eventually you start to get used to, oh, the M spot, that's ma. And you start to understand and remember which letter is what sound. But yeah, I mean, I've made so many mistakes. And so I don't think that I did learn it well from the beginning, but I think it's kind of fallen into place. And I have a lot of people who've been very gracious answering a lot of questions. So
What are the Khmer words that is really difficult for you to learn or to pronounce, or that is similar?
I'm only going to say one of the words that's similar. One of them is the word at, which means can. And then there's another word that's really similar, which is not a good word. So, but it's very similar. And then a couple of things that were particularly hard and still sometimes are hard are two letters. One of them is the letter ngo. So it's an NG sound, but it's frequently at like the beginning of a word, which is not something we have in English. So words like ngat or ngoi, or even words like chungang were very hard for me at first to get that NG sound. And then the second letter is like the R letter because they roll R's. So sometimes it's hard for me to say words that have that like srei.
Chingang, somehow you can use chingang when some food, like when food is sweet, it's nice, and when the place is far.
Yeah, one of them has an N at the end, chungang, and then one of them has like a Y at the end, chungai. So chungai is far, and then chungang is tasty or delicious.
I don't know if I never say that correct. It's always like a chingang, chingang. It's always the same.
See, that's why reading and writing is helpful, because if you know the letters, then you can say it better.
Your Khmer is good. I must compliment you. I've been here for a long time. I'm always ashamed to say it, but I can't even handle do like simple conversation, basic conversation. Maybe because I'm too lazy or learning language is always too hard for me. But I wish I can learn like you. But
It's hard to learn in the city too, though, because I mean, everyone speaks at least a little bit of English here. And even compared with like some other countries close by, I know that Cambodians speak on average more English than some of their neighboring countries. So why would you maybe feel pressured to learn Khmer if you're still exposed to English all the time? But I think since I spent so much time in provinces and villages, I didn't have as much of a choice. So
how important do you think it is for foreigners who live to Cambodia to learn Khmer?
I probably have a bit of an elitist view because I know Khmer. My personal philosophy would always be that it's more important to learn than to not learn. If for anything, just to display your effort in remembering that we're guests here, we shouldn't expect that everyone can cater to us, even if they can. But at least for me, I don't want that to be my mindset or my expectation. So for me, I would say that I think it's important for foreigners to at least try to learn the basic parts, maybe just to get around a little bit, even if just to display that they appreciate Cambodia and Cambodian culture. And then I would say more than that, if a foreigner is in a relationship with a Cambodian, I think it's really vital to learn Khmer, just because it adds an entirely different level of depth to the relationship. So I think it's really important, but I also know it's easier said than done, I guess. So, but I think it's important, yeah.
But I feel like Khmer is very hard. It's a hard language to learn.
Yeah, it can be tricky.
It's very complicated.
The grammar is easy though. That's like the one saving grace is the grammar is very easy.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I understand, like I can hear what they say, but when it comes out from my mouth, it's different.
That's not what I heard.
Yeah, it's like sometimes when I say it, I will be like disencouraged. I don't even want to take the class anymore. I don't want to say it anymore. I feel shy. But somehow they're always encouraging. They're always encouraging. But I can say maybe it's from I am very bad in learning languages. I still want to learn.
Well, you still have time, right?
Yeah, I still have time,
Yeah.
but not too much time. Is there anything interesting, like wows you that you learned after you learned Khmer?
I would say yes. Maybe some things that are hard to pinpoint. But I think that knowing Khmer has really helped me maybe understand maybe just some of like the underlying, I don't know if personality is the right word, but maybe some of like the heart of Cambodia and Cambodians. Especially because I use Khmer, I mean, every day, very frequently. And there's been times before where I use more Khmer than English every day. And because of that, I've been able to establish relationships with people in a way that I don't think I would have been able to establish a relationship with them just by speaking English. And Cambodians can be quite reserved in talking about things that are personal and maybe talking about some of their feelings for whatever reason or another. And I've found that knowing Khmer has helped me to maybe understand some of the more intimate parts of just who they are as people and also who they are as a culture. I would say that maybe one of the most valuable things that I've learned about maybe Cambodia or Cambodians since learning Khmer has been some of the personal stories from people who've been alive during the Khmer Rouge, especially. I know several people who were alive and experienced some really insane things during the Khmer Rouge. And obviously, because they're older now, they don't have the amount of English possible to share all the details. And because I know Khmer, I'm able to know those details. And it really helps you to understand not just that person as an individual, but it opens your eyes to so much about the culture and even just like some of the ways that or the reasons why Cambodians do things certain ways, or the reason why certain places are the way that they are. So I think that knowing Khmer has kind of just helped me to get a better understanding of maybe like people's hearts and their background, things that they experience that maybe they wouldn't have the ability or the confidence to talk about in English. So I think that's been special.
What would be your advice to the foreigners, to other foreigners, maybe like me that is struggling to learn Khmer or finding it difficult to start it? What would be your advice?
I would say I have my advice as someone who speaks Khmer, and then I feel like I have advice as someone who's been a teacher for a few years. So my advice from learning Khmer, just based on my own experience, I encourage every foreigner to learn how to read and write. And I know that seems like the most daunting, but I really promise once you learn how to read and write, everything else comes much quicker. And that's also something that it doesn't require as much maybe commitment because you don't necessarily have to be with other people or having a conversation or going out of your way to do something. You can just do it at home, writing things down, even just for the habit of it. So I always say, learn to read and write. However, as a teacher, I know that not everyone benefits as strongly from reading and writing. I do. That's why I can pick up on things easier when I'm reading it or writing it down. I know that about myself. So I would say from the standpoint of a teacher, maybe understand about the way that you learn, and if you're going to learn better from listening or from reading and writing or from just more opportunities to speak, because sometimes having an increased opportunity to do something, even if you're doing it maybe wrong or not perfect or not in a way that you feel confident, but having an increased opportunity to keep doing something might just kind of give you the fuel to keep going or start to loosen things up in your brain. So I would say maybe understanding your learning style and then honestly seeking out opportunities to use Khmer. And I know that can be hard when there's a lot of expats in Phnom Penh especially, and everyone speaks at least a little bit of English. But if you seek out opportunities to use Khmer at least once a day, then it gets your brain into the habit of using it. Versus, oh, once a month, maybe I'll try to say something, you know?
I mean, your Khmer is really good. I will always give you that compliment. Have you ever thought of maybe one day I want to be Cambodian citizen? Because you can read, at least you said more than 50% you can read. Speaking, I also fluent, very fluent. Have you maybe considered one day I want to have Cambodian citizenship?
Yeah, I think it's a strange matter because there's really no particular benefit to being a citizen unless I want to purchase land, which maybe I will want to. Sure, maybe I'd be interested in citizenship, but it's in no way one of my priorities. Of course, it would also be nice I wouldn't have to have a visa or a work permit. I could just live here. But it's not one of my priorities. I think I'm good to live here as an expat. But I also know it's a possibility if I wanted to devote some time and money.
Yeah, I think you've passed all most of the hard exams, because if you want it, you can read now, you can also speak as well. So that is the most difficult part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's down to the
Yeah.
money.
Yeah. What message do you have for Cambodians in Khmer?
ចាខ្ញុំចង់និយាយថាអរគុណដល់ប្រជាជនខ្មែរដែលស្វាគមន៍ខ្ញុំដែលស្វាគមន៍បរទេសទាំងអស់នៅហ្នឹងហើយខ្ញុំឃើញក្នុង TikTok ខ្ញុំក្នុង social media ខ្ញុំមានតែអ្នកគាំទ្រហើយខ្ញុំពិតជាអរគុណដែរសារពេលខ្លះខ្ញុំមានអារម្មណ៍ដូចខ្ញុំជាមនុស្សធម្មតាខ្ញុំគ្មានអីពិសេសគ្មានអីដែលគួរឲ្យគេចាប់អារម្មណ៍ចឹងពេលខ្ញុំឃើញមាន set fan ក្នុង comment សរសើរហើយចង់តាក់ទងជាមួយគ្នាចង់ធ្វើមិត្តភក្តិគ្នាចង់គាំទ្រខ្ញុំមានអារម្មណ៍ពិតជាសប្បាយណាស់មានអារម្មណ៍ដូចខ្ញុំមកខ្មែរមានតម្លៃមានប្រយោជន៍នៅខ្មែរអញ្ចឹងទៅមុខទៀតខ្ញុំចង់និយាយថាខ្ញុំសង្ឃឹមថាខ្ញុំអាចមានតាក់ទងជាមួយអ្នកខ្មែរទៅមុខទៀតរហូតជារៀងរហូតហើយចង់ណែនាំខ្មែរជួយយើងទៅវិញទៅមកយើងជួយតាក់ទងគ្នា ហើយខ្ញុំសង្ឃឹមថាទៅមុខទៀតមានបរទេសច្រើនដែលចង់មកខ្មែរហើយចង់រៀនខ្មែរដូចខ្ញុំដើម្បីយើងអាចមានសន្តិភាពហើយមានទំនាក់ទំនងល្អជាមួយគ្នាចា៎